Okay, now you're recording.
Great. So it's February 3rd. Welcome to the Amherst Historical Commission meeting. In accordance with the laws of Massachusetts, this public meeting of the Town of Amherst Historical Commission is being conducted via remote participation. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so via Zoom or by telephone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time by technological means. A hyperlink to the hearing has been posted on the town's online calendar. We have 6 items on our agenda tonight, and we are starting with an approval of meeting minutes from January 6th, 2025. Has everyone reviewed the minutes and is ready to vote on their approval?
Yes.
I'll take that. Yes, okay. I'll do my little trick here where I say the chair will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 6, 2025, to which someone in my audience can say, so moved, and then someone else can second to make it easy
So
for everyone.
moved.
Okay,
So
Pat?
moved.
Okay, Pat, so moved. Do I have a second? It's Hetty. Was that a second? I saw a finger. Yeah, okay, Hetty seconds. So we have a motion before us to approve the meeting minutes of January 6, 2025. I'll take a roll call vote. Pat?
Yay.
Madeline?
Yes.
Hetty?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that's a vote of 4-0. The motion passes, the minutes are approved. Second item on the agenda is announcements. I have no announcements, but I turn to the town and other members of the commission for anything that they want to offer at this point. Walker is shaking her head. Nate is shaking his head. I think we have no announcements today. Okay. Agenda item number 3, or C if you prefer, the JCA preservation restriction. I'm going to hand that over to Walker.
So they were unable to join us tonight for the meeting, so it'll just be Nate and I talking about the preservation restriction, which we are hoping to get finalized and possibly voted upon. I think at this point it's gone back and forth a few times, and I think the only comments that they had left were that they were proposing a smaller project area than what we had proposed and what I included in the meeting packet. They would like to only include the newer portions of the buildings and not the later addition. So
And-
I wanted to run that by you.
Can I clarify? So is the JCA currently under preservation restriction for previous CPA work? This
No.
is preservation restriction for the previous.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, they've been operating as if they've been under one, so they've approached the town if they were doing something, but this has, been like 95% complete for a few years.
Okay.
And we're finally now at the point where I think it's ready. We've used the template that the commission approved for, more recent preservation restrictions. And so the difference, this one being that instead of encompassing the whole property because their property's grown, it would include a project area. And so, the terms and conditions of the restriction the rest of it is pretty similar to what we've approved in the past. We did add one sentence under project review. I'm trying to find the section. We just say that the commission would hold a public hearing or a public meeting to review the information in order to certify that everything is okay. So, if they come before the commission to make changes, most restrictions don't, describe a process. And we've, held the hearing and we do mailings and everything, but we don't necessarily need to have a public hearing. So we put in a public hearing or a public meeting.
Okay.
I think otherwise the document is very similar to what was provided for the last few restrictions the commission has looked at.
Okay, for other properties.
Yeah, for other properties, yeah.
Okay, and this, so this preservation restriction references an amount, and it also says a scope of work that's related to the proposal, but that's not within, at least when I was looking at the document, I didn't see the scope of work. So that's why I was kind of curious about which CPA project this was related to.
Yeah, that's the steeple restoration. I mean, it would apply, they're also applying for CPA funds now for their windows, and so this would cover that, so they wouldn't have to enter into a new one.
Okay, so this will cover, but it does, so, sorry. It references a specific dollar amount, which I'm assuming is related to the steeple preservation.
Right.
So when you tie it to that specific dollar amount, how does I'm sorry to be like so ridiculously legalistic about this, but when you tie it to that specific dollar amount and that specific award, I guess it's sort of irrelevant that there's a secondary award. I mean, the only difference would be, I'm just trying to like think out loud. The only difference would be like if it's 10 years later, essentially the next CPA award is getting 10 years less of preservation restriction, right? Like if you started one 10 years later, that's basically the only difference because they're already under the restriction. They're going to have to come up to us. They're going to have to come up for a specific time period, but we haven't restarted the clock with the new award. Is that correct?
Right, and so, it could be that if, so many years pass and they come back, we could have a, an extension or, a one-page document agreeing to extend the term of this restriction because they've received funding, so many
Okay.
years already into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have other questions or comments?
I could share the project area just so,
Oh yeah, that was my other questions. I guess what's excluded from the project area and what was the rationale behind that?
yeah, let me see if is this visible for everyone? I can make it a little bigger.
Yeah, a little bigger would be good.
So, let's see. So right now here's the original two historic buildings down here. And they put this addition on about 20 years ago, a little longer. But, since then the property's grown, so it's all of this. And it's this access drive. And so really unless the commission really wants to, I don't think it's necessary to have a restriction over here to review what changes happened to the parking lot.
Right.
What they had asked was, could the restriction only apply to, be something like this? And here, what I had talked to Karen about was that if that were the case, they could do something back here that could impact the visual, how you'd see the front of this building.
Right, they could do whatever the limit is to stories in the back.
Right.
Right, yeah, that's a good point.
And so then, I have it right here to the back of this building. It could do something like this. There's talk about putting an addition on back here, which, most of it would be outside the project area and pretty far back from the street here. That might be a few years away, but if the commission likes this project area, we could say yes to it. I'd relay that to to Karen and everyone. I think they're also trying to get their mortgage to subordinate, which has been not as easy. So that's the other option. Question would be, would we want to approve? We can approve the restriction tonight the way it's formatted. You've seen it, and then we can wait to hear from them if they have trouble with a few pieces, and we can always bring it back. But we've been withholding funding for a while, a final payout until this restriction has been approved, and so the hope is to get it done pretty soon.
Yep. And can you just briefly explain again? I remember mortgage subordination, but I mean, it's kind of like where in, we don't have a lien against them. So how does that apply?
Well, right now they have, if we recorded our restriction, it's recorded in order. So their mortgages would serve, our restriction wouldn't survive a default. So if something happened to the property, the restriction could be wiped out. And so we'd want to, get first position so that it would survive default or, something happening with their financial situation.
So, but that's unusual, right? To have a non-debt based agreement, superior to a mortgage.
We try to do that with all like conservation restrictions and affordable housing restrictions. But I agree, I will say that they've talked about refinancing in the next year or two. So then we would be, if we, we would be, if we recorded this before, then we'd be first position, so we would be, we would survive that. But it's something for the, it's our town attorneys would always say, make sure you have any mortgage holders, or mortgage company subordinate. It's just sometimes they're really reluctant.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay. So that's something that the town will hammer out. We don't need to worry about.
Well, if we don't want to approve it until we know for sure, but we're working on it.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. So you said, Nate, that an edit was made to include not just a public hearing, but a public meeting could also be, yeah. And so I think I found that it's not highlighted in the preservation restriction as like a change, but what was the thinking behind that?
I mean, saying a public meeting or a public hearing.
Because you said that was a change to just,
Right.
to not just have a public hearing, but it could be a public meeting to decide.
Well, so yeah, I can share my screen again. I thought it was visible and track changes in the document, but
Oh, I'm
Eh,
looking.
this is visible. So usually we'd say right here, for within 60 days of receipt of any plan or written request for approval, for changes, it said grantee shall certify in writing that it approves the plans. And so typically this part right here that's highlighted isn't in a standard restriction template. And so, what, the building commissioner and I at one point said, would we write something at least like this in to know that there is actually a meeting or something happening? And so, most
Okay.
restrictions don't want to prescribe the exact process, but we could say we'll hold a public hearing that's advertised 2 weeks in advance, and we mail a butter notifications. We could get, a little more detailed. Or the template that we've been using and was provided from the state and our attorneys looked at didn't even have this in it. So it's kind of like how does the grantee certify in writing that it approves the plans without having a meeting or something? So I mean,
I see. Okay, from your description, I thought that it was like loosening the
no,
restriction, but it doesn't, it's actually
Yeah.
just specifying more of the process.
right,
Okay.
right. Otherwise, it would have read like this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that
Which is
makes sense.
just. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's what we do anyways.
It is, yeah. It's just following our practice.
Other questions or comments?
And so their preferred project area is just the historic buildings in the front.
Yeah, we have a very similar restriction template with South Church. They did the same, another steeple restoration that they finished recently, and they would like the same thing. And what I told them, and we're going to meet probably next week, is that, if we have such a small product area, anything that could happen beyond it on the property could impact the view shed of the historic building. And so I would say we wouldn't want to have such a small project area. South Church is similar to the Jewish community of Amherst, that they were one small property and now they own like 4 or 5 acres. And so it's strange to say we'll cover the whole property with the restriction, because that means, something that's, not even visible really would be under the preservation restriction. So we're trying to define a project area there, and they're saying, well, can we just limit it to like, the historic building or even just the front facade of the building? But, I would say that if it was something so small on the front facade, we did this with the Unitarian Universalist, right? For the stained glass window, we had some parameters that didn't cover the whole property, but it covered the facade and anything that's visible from the streets in terms of how it impacts the window. So when they were updating the church a number of years ago, they came before the commission to get reviewed, in terms of their changes in siding or roofing. But I would rather have, for the Jewish community of Amherst, have the project area that was proposed, not something that's so small. But the commission can discuss it.
Right. I mean, I would think the one advantage of that would be that if you have an addition that in massing that competes with the historic church, that's really the big issue,
Right.
right? It's kind of like the only thing that would be focused on, it's just, but yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, the addition itself wouldn't be, well, it's sort of a good question. I mean, that really is a good question. It's sort of like, if that's not you know, like in a historic district, you'd consider it like non-contributing, right? So sort of like,
Right.
it's in there, but, you know, we don't consider changes to it per se that are, you know, a problem, but changes that would distract from the view shed is, yeah.
Right, because we define the church and the parish hall as the two buildings
Right.
that are, you know, the resources, and so only if what's happening in the back impacts
Right.
the two buildings, so, you know, they're gonna,
Right.
right, put on a bigger, taller addition, like if they change the windows in the back, it doesn't necessarily impact that.
Right, right. It doesn't, and it would, yeah, right. It doesn't impact the front building at all. It's curious. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. With the larger project area for that reason. So at this point, what is the next step? What is does the committee the commission just give their consent to the restriction as it is currently worded?
Yeah, I'd want to vote, and then, you know, if there's any changes, we could come back at the next meeting. You know, if the JCA wants to make some changes, but at least we know that the commission approves it, and if once they have a signature, we could then release our funds and collect
Okay,
your signatures.
okay. All right, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the preservation restriction for the JCA as currently presented. So if I have a so moves and a second, we can move forward with a vote. Everyone else speak at once. Or you can object and go on to a different part of the comment, or I suppose I could move it myself.
Is this sort of a bit of a, does it set a precedent for people to not participate and show up to make the case for a preservation restriction to be agreed upon? I feel like I'm operating a little bit in the dark. Maybe I haven't done my homework, but
No, I think that, you know, like I said, we've been discussing this with years for them, and so Karen is on a plane back from DC, and we had tried getting it on the agenda for last month, but the timing didn't work out, and so, you know, both the representatives are on this trip that they couldn't miss, and so, I don't think so. I mean, you know,
And
Okay.
assuming that if we approve it as it stands, it doesn't become a legal document, JCA has to consent to it. If they have an issue, they can go down. We're just saying that we're okay with our side of it at this point.
yeah, I wouldn't have brought it here if it wasn't, you know, like I said, you know, really close to being complete. So they've, you know, we've been talking with this, like, you know, for the last like 4 years between attorneys and
Yeah.
everyone, their board, and
and this is for the stained glass windows, is that right?
no, it's for the steeple restoration.
Oh,
Yeah, that was my question earlier, is that it pertains to the steeple restoration. It applies a 99-year preservation restriction, which essentially, you know, I was saying the only difference with the stained glass windows, which I'm assuming haven't been approved by town council yet, is that, you know, if they wanted to, that we would be, you know, they're gonna be under a preservation restriction for what, 99 years? None of us will be here. It expires. If we wanted to, we could extend it by whatever the difference of years is in between, you know, whatever. I mean, it's actually, that's
I
gonna
mean,
be.
the restriction won't be, you know, I mean, really, it's going to take effect, you know, whenever it's signed. So this
Yeah,
year,
so it's
2025.
really, it'll cover the stained glass, it'll essentially cover everything that we want to cover with the stained glass windows anyway, so.
So there would be no new preservation restriction once.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
So in our discussions about the stained glass windows, we were curious if there was going to be any like protections to the stained glass windows or changes to the interior space to kind of create more of a protection. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
we wanted to.
maybe we want to invite JCA to our next meeting to discuss that. I mean, we've essentially Pat, I do see your hand up.
Yeah.
The CPA committee approved the proposal as it stands, which I don't think we put in any sort of condition of protection for the windows. But certainly we could invite them to the commission to talk about, you know, whether they would install plexiglass barriers or whatever. But I think that, so we could jot that down as an item for the next meeting, but since this preservation restriction doesn't really deal with that directly, we could just leave it at that for now. Does that seem okay, Madeline?
Yeah, I would be open to discussion amongst you all about whether that makes sense to request from them.
Request them to come. Okay, let me just
Or,
get,
I mean, not even to request them to come, but if we would like to have some conditions or not, or if we
okay.
think it's fine. I don't know.
I think it, all
Whatever
right,
thinks.
let's, I'm gonna stick to this preservation, and we'll circle back to that. Pat, what is your comment?
I just, a little bit like Hetty, not sure that I would like Nate to weigh in that the preservation document as it's written now is approved by the town, the legal aspects of it. And if so, then I don't see any reason not to forward it for their signature. And if they have other questions or changes they're requesting, then it will come back to us. But Nate, is it, it's been reviewed by our attorneys and it's standard as things go, but related to the JCA.
Right, so this was a template that the commission's approved for the last two, restrictions, and so it's the same form, essentially. So all the requirements and all the, except for that one change I had about a hearing or meeting, it's the same document that our town attorneys looked at for the last two projects, and they looked at this one a while ago. So they looked at 3 preservation restrictions. There was the Wildwood Cemetery, this one, and one other one that the commission's approved that the attorney looked at.
Thank you.
Okay, other comments related to this specific preservation restriction? No, okay, so
There
the
is
chair.
a- There is a hand up in the audience if you want to take public comment on this.
That's right, we don't have public comment on the agenda. Okay, we could, I see Hilda has her hand up. Hilda, if you want to let Hilda in to make a brief public comment.
Yes, number one, I'm disclaimer, I'm a member of the JCA, but I'm trying to write the article for the newspaper. I don't understand what the motion is that you're voting on. That number one, is it to include the whole property or just the old buildings?
It's
What's
to,
the motion? I couldn't understand what your motion was.
it's to include the project area that was shown, so it's not the whole
The whole
property, but
thing? It's the whole thing? I
Is it-
think that's a good idea. That's what I'm homing in on, that I hope you're gonna do the whole thing. Yes,
it's just everything shown in red, if that's visible.
that's good. Okay, the other thing I'd like to mention is you forgot to take roll call. Are you down to 4 members or is the 5th member absent?
Antonio.
Hi,
Really?
I'm here. The one thing is what I was gonna say is that on the vote, I was gonna abstain from this vote because I missed the first 10 minutes. But
I can't
can say
hear,
that.
I don't understand, it's coming out garbled.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's garbled. Is she on or off, Antonio?
Antonio's here.
I'm here.
What?
I can
I-
hear her.
Is she here?
Yes.
Here. Hilda,
Oh, she is?
I think your connection is a little spotty.
Yeah, no, is Antonia at the meeting tonight or are there more?
Yes. Yes, I am here.
Oh, you are here, because I don't
Yes.
see you. Oh, okay, because I can't see you there. And,
Yes, no, I am here.
and Robin, I don't believe you took attendance last time or this time.
You're correct, Hilda. I forgot. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure what you guys were voting on because it wasn't clear at all.
Okay, thanks, Hilda.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll pause for a quick attendance. Pat off.
Present.
How do you start up?
I think I'm here.
Madeline Helmer.
I'm present.
Antonia Brillenberg.
I'm present.
And we can, I don't know, the recording will reveal what time Antonia joined, and I, Robin Fordham, am present, and that is the entirety of our commission at this point. Okay. So I'm going to circle back to entertaining a motion to approve the preservation restriction as it was presented tonight at the meeting. If you are interested in making that motion, you can simply reply, "So moved." If you're interested in seconding, you can second.
So moved.
Okay, Madeline, the motion is before us. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, Pat has seconded. Is there further discussion regarding the preservation restriction for the JCA? No further discussion. We'll move to a roll call vote. Motion before us is to approve the preservation restriction for the JCA as presented tonight. Hetty Startup,
I approve.
Madeline Helmer,
I approve.
Antonia Brillenberg.
I'm abstaining because I missed the first 7 minutes of this
Okay.
call.
Thank you. Pat Oth.
yes,
Okay, and I vote yes as well. So that is 4 yeses, 1 abstention. And so the motion passes and the preservation restriction is approved to be forwarded by the town and continued process with the JCA. Madeline, do we want to circle back to your thoughts about the CPA agreement for the JCA regarding the stained glass windows?
Unless you
Yeah,
want to
I
wait
mean-
on that because it's not on the agenda technically. I don't
Okay,
know.
so we can bump it to unanticipated items.
Sure.
All right, we'll bump it to unanticipated items. Okay. Our next agenda item is next steps for barn preservation applications. Walker, do you want to?
Yep. So Jan and I have been organizing the documents, and we're gonna go out and take some more photos of some of the barns. And thank you for the list, Robin. I do have that now.
Yep.
I'm just curious. I know last time someone had volunteered to maybe get a postcard made so that we could get that prepped
Oh,
to
yeah.
send.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay.
And InDesign. So what's your timeline? Just
We can
ASAP?
we can get this going at any point now. We have everything, I think. So once
Okay.
the cards are ready, we can start sending them out and I will make the webpage live.
Okay, I'll do that. Sounds good.
And Jan does have some photos already and we're gonna be taking more later this week.
Okay, so I won't spend time looking for a photo. I'll just make the InDesign template
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
And then if I don't know if it's easier for you to just add a photo or if you want to send it and we'll see if we can add one, but
You can just, yeah, select it and add, and then send it to me and I can drop it into the document.
I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, great. Anything else there under barn preservation applications?
I think that was all I had. I just wanted to make sure we were keeping it moving so we can get it going.
Okay, great, excellent. Okay, next agenda item is West Cemetery mural and historic signs. Back to you, Walker.
So this we talked about a few meetings back. It would be nice to get the interpretive signs up for the mural. I've done a little additional research. We have some, I'm getting some feedback, sorry. We have some funding available for the West Cemetery, but it is only for interpretive or directional signs, which there were several planned, but there's only been one installed. So I thought that we could combine another couple of those signs from the plan into this if we end up putting this out to bid or getting it installed. But we need to determine what the design is going to be for the mural signs. And it seems like it was talked about before, but I can't find anything specific that was written down or any like example drawings or something. So I don't know if we need to start over or if we just need to make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, Nate is here. I think Nate was there at that time. We had I just remember, I don't know if I'm Pat or Hetty, I can't remember if you were on the commission at that point. We had a whole discussion about it, and I remember seeing something that was like, we had discussions about whether to do one long sign or breaking it into two, and then this idea of like creating silhouettes of the pieces, you know, as opposed to recreating the mural on the signs, creating these kind of silhouettes, you know, like the silhouette of Emily Dickinson or whatever, and not having information. Do we not have any of that
I
document?
think that might have been in Ben's files, and I guess none of those are have been they've been lost since he left, I guess.
Okay, all right. Um,
But if that's the premise we were going towards, I could try to find an example and then get the graphic designer to sketch something up.
hold on a
Yeah,
second.
yeah, I think, you know, I had been a part of one or two of those conversations, and I think, Robin, we were there, but we never really got down to the kind of actual details
Yeah, I
of what that
remember
would
us
look
not
like.
making a decision. Can I just hand over the chair to Madeline for a second? My elderly mom is calling and she doesn't usually call me, so I'm just gonna take this call.
Sure. Yep. Go for it. Got it.
Yeah, and I think what I think Walker had said, we like the writer's walk signs, and now we have the wayfinding signs, and so we have, you know, kind of colors and fonts and a template. We really do like the writer's walk, and so we're thinking of using kind of some of that and making it bigger. It might be like in 2 or 3 signs to cover the mural. You know, the silhouette idea was proposed. There's other ideas. I think some of it would be, you know, if 1 or 2 members wanted to work with staff, you
I
know,
would
just
love-
volunteer.
I would love to work
and
on
then we
this.
could just move it forward.
I would really like to work on this. The bid had a really beautiful brochure that you could get, and that was really great to look at the mural with this brochure. I don't know if there are any left of those.
I do have a PDF of the brochure, I think.
Do you?
Yeah.
Good. I just learned that some of the young women who worked at the Hills Hat Factory were called Burnett, the family. I'm wondering if that has anything to do with the gallery at the Jones, whether that's the same family. I'm very interested in helping in any way I can to get us to the next stage, Walker, if you want to get in touch with me.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. And there was one sign put up next to the entrance, off of whatever street that is. That's not Triangle Street. That the other entrance.
North Pleasant.
Yes, North Pleasant. That's sort of a welcome and has like some of the rules and regulations and a map on it. And I think the original plan was for there to be another one of those at the other entrance, and then a couple more directional signs within the cemetery. And that one that's there is also the same colors and design kind of as the Writer's Walk. So it might be pretty easy to replicate that for a couple more directional signs if we want to do that as part of the same project.
Yeah, and I think we have some planning capital funding, and the developer might still even have a bond. We might have a bond out to help with this interpretive sign for the mural. So it'd be great in the next few months if we had that, so that, you know, this coming summer we could actually, you know, get it installed.
Great.
All right, so I will reach out, Hetty, and we can set something up.
Great.
Okay. Let me see here. Agenda. So we'll move on to the next item. Updates on tasks from the Historic Preservation Plan. Walker, did you want to take that on?
Yeah, I wasn't here last year, but I guess that everybody had agreed to attempt to take on a task or two from the plan to see if the plan, you know, now that we have it, we can start implementing it. And I wanted to do a early year check-in on how that was going and if that's something that people feel like they can continue to do, or if we need to change up how we're doing that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, one of those is the modern architecture survey. So Hetty and I are going to keep building that list, and I think I really need to just sort of make an effort to actually look around Amherst and really collect properties. So if you all see anything that you want to add, but really that's kind of up and running. So if anyone else wants to speak on behalf of their own project, you can go ahead. I see Robin, you're back too.
I'm back. Um,
We
So-
moved on to the next item,
yeah,
tasks.
so we're on updated tasks. Yep, I know that we made a good faith effort last year to kind of do 1 and 5-year goals, and life intrudes. So here we are. My main objectives are to assist with demolition, documentation of buildings that are either demolished, approved to be demolished or have been demolished. I also wanted to put together a funding sheet to use for CPA for other historic preservation applicants for other historic preservation funding sources that are available, encouraging them to apply. And I remembered that I also wanted to do a little hot sheet of resources for members, commission members for additional training on historic preservation. So those are my areas of interest.
Yeah, I was
Robin,
thinking-
I hate. Oh, sorry, Nate, go ahead.
I don't have my hand raised. I was gonna say this could be another, I think it'd be good to continue it next month and we could recirculate the table, Robin, or you had set up something.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good just to share it again and then have commission members talk about it, at one more meeting. Even if we can decide tonight for things, but I think it'd be good just to discuss it one more time.
Okay. Yep. Other thoughts? Anybody else have a comments?
I have my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Pat.
and I-
Go right ahead.
That's all right. I was gonna say exactly what Nate said. I think we need to be refreshed. And we've had some changes on the commission of people who were paired might not be paired anymore. And so I have to be honest with you, I really do need to be refreshed.
Antonia?
My project was the sign for when demolition delays, and I had I guess Nate and I had gone back and forth, but I'll continue doing that, and or just to be on the same page to get that going.
Okay, great, Antonia. I know you've asked about that at pretty much every meeting. Really appreciate your effort there. Other thoughts or comments? Okay, so we'll expect to visit this the next meeting. And I did get a chance to finally get those lists to Walker, and so now she has them and we can recirculate them and go forward. Okay, so that was the update on tasks from the Historic Preservation Plan. Our next, we've had public comment. We had sort of a brief public comment, but before we go to unanticipated items, I just want to call for a formal period of public comment. If anybody in the audience has any comments that they want to add to the meeting at this point, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll introduce you into the meeting. I see a hand up from Alyssa. If Walker will let you in, if you could just introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Elisa Campbell. I attended the meeting where the decision was made as to the commission's positions about the changes to the Jones Library. So I was quite surprised when I was attending the Section 106 meeting for the Jones Library to hear 2 members of the commission speaking against the proposed changes. The only decisions that you made, as is recorded in your minutes, were that you wanted real slate, not artificial slate on the roof, and that you did not want the book drop. But members of this commission, speaking as if they were representing the commission at the official meeting, acted as if the Historical Commission had many other concerns about the Jones proposal. I don't understand how that's possible.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Lisa. We will take it on the record.
I was not present at the consulting parties meeting. that was recently held, just so you all know.
I just want to pause for a second because since this involves the Jones Library, Madeline, unfortunately, I have to hand it over to you again, since I need to recuse myself around matters related to that. So if you guys want to speak or discuss that, I'm gonna hand the meeting to Madeline and I'll join you when that's complete.
Okay,
Thank you.
Madeline?
yeah,
Um,
yes, Pat.
I asked Walker to add a agenda item to tonight's meeting, and I'm not sure that Robin has that, so it was reposted.
Yes, I
And
did
it
have an updated agenda item.
Right. And so I think I hope it didn't get lost, because to me it's important. And I think it's important to the integrity of the Amherst Historical Commission.
You want me to pull it up and see what the agenda item was specifically, or do you remember what you had requested?
I remember, but I'm wondering where it is on the
Oh, it
on
should
the
be,
agenda.
it should be next before unanticipated business.
Right, and Robin said unanticipated business
Yeah,
is
she may not
next,
have
so-
had the updated agenda.
Right. And so if I may,
Sure. Yeah, I
take-
think we could
take-
move on to that.
take this on. You know, I value the Historical Commission, the Amherst Historical Commission, and its role in Amherst. I value the integrity of the commission and its decision making. And I value being on the Amherst Historical Commission. But there was an issue that came to my attention as a result of the 106 hearings. And this doesn't have to do with those hearings. They've happened, they're gone. But it has to do with training for commission members. It's my understanding and experience that when consulting parties represent a commission or a board, their sole role is to represent the view and the votes of the commission board represented. Should one of the consulting parties have a personal viewpoint, that must be presented during the public comment period, and with the absolute clarity that it is done so as a private citizen, not as a consulting party to any board or commission. And that was the issue that I thought we should discuss. And it should be part of the orientation for new historical commission members.
I see, Elisa, you have your hand raised. I'll let you make one more comment and then we're going to return to meeting amongst the commissioners.
Well, thank you. I actually tried to lower it because I made my point, and Pat
Okay.
made it better than I did. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. So did Pat, did you speak with Nate and Walker about this issue?
No, I sent an email to Robin. And
Oh,
I
right. Yep.
originally related it to the 106. So she said she couldn't speak to that. And then I sent another, and she said she would send emails to you and Hetty because you were the consulting parties.
Mhm.
And you are the only person who responded to me and suggested that Nate would be the best person to speak to this. And I got here from Nate, and I then I said I would want this on the agenda at the next meeting, because I think
Right.
it's very important.
I think
And
the
so
quote that you just read, though, is that in representation to other boards and committees, or is it in representation
well,
of
it's
the
in
board and commission to
it's
anything?
it's not to the 106, it's to anything that anyone on the Amherst Historical Commission who volunteers. I think you and Hetty volunteered. I'm not sure we voted you, but we accepted that you were going to do it. But I think there needs to be a clear understanding that whatever you say representing, in this case, the Amherst Historical Commission, has to be the point of view of the committee, of the commission, and the vote. And
Right.
any other thoughts you have, you know, First Amendment rights, you can speak them, but you need to do it during public comment and identify yourself as speaking from personal opinion, not as any commission or board.
Okay. I think I prefaced my statement by saying that I didn't have the opportunity to vote on I was on maternity leave during that hearing.
Right,
So,
we first approved the original design. And then we approved the second design that was supposed to be cost effective. We did have discussion about the windows should be new. We did have discussion that absolutely no asbestos, but the architects were talking to us about the cost of the slate, et cetera. And we did have the discussion about the book drop. So we discussed those three things, and it turns out that the Mass Historical Commission is requesting that there be new windows and slate and remove the book drop. And so that's related to our discussion, but other topics, except for what we voted on, are not related to be reported by consulting parties at a public hearing. And so it's future going forward. I have lots of experience on boards and civic commissions and boards. And this has always been the case.
I think as somebody who didn't have the opportunity to vote on the Jones Library renovation, I didn't. I was representing the commission's values in terms of what our mission statement is towards preservation as I interpret it.
And Madeline, I think your comments were appropriate. But I do think that we need to be very clear that anyone representing the Amherst Historical Commission as a consulting party needs to be clear that they're commenting on the point
think
of
it's
view of the
difficult,
commission
though.
and the vote. Well, it could be difficult, but you know what? Otherwise, the public gets a very different impression of who we are. And it has a impact on the integrity of this commission.
Nate, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, you know, the commission might be very rarely called on to be a consulting party in a 106 review. And so really that process, could have been maybe better described by who was managing that process, whether it was Bob Perrin or someone else. But I think the commission made a really discrete set of votes. But I do think that if there was discussion about what else was talked about at the commission hearings, I think it's appropriate for a commission representative to say there was concerns about this and this that was discussed at the hearing. So whether or not the commission voted yes or no on something, if there was a lot of talk about, say, the roofing material, right, on another project, or the siding material, it's okay to relay that because that was part of the hours of hearings that the commission heard. And so, I haven't, followed it precisely in terms of what was said, but there was a lot discussed in the Jones Library hearings going back to, I guess it was what, 22 or 23, and then the hearings last year. And so, there was comments about all sorts of things related to the library, the changes to the interior woodwork. And the commission asked a lot of questions about that. We asked a lot of questions about the slate roof and if they could do life cycle costs and what the cost differential really was. And the architects team was a little reluctant to provide some information. We heard pros for synthetic slate because of weight and other things, but I think if all that is relayed as part of to the 106 review, that's all part of what was heard at the hearing, that there was concerns about the loss of slate, but then there was also proponents for synthetic slate, and then there was proponents for asphalt shingles. And so to me, that's not misrepresenting what was heard at the hearings. They have some meeting summaries from what the commission already voted. It's really like, Madeline was saying, what's the historic values of the commission? And if someone said, oh, was there problems with whatever, you could say, yeah, at the commission hearings, there was a lot of discussion about this, whatever that topic may be. I don't think that's
Yeah, I don't take exception to what you just said. I take exception to comments that were made on topics we did not discuss, like the scale of the building, the new building.
I
We
think
did not discuss that.
Yeah, I saw that the hearing that we had with where I was absent, it didn't look like there were many dimensions included. And then seeing with the new knowledge of MHC's letters and comments, I think it really became a significant issue that in my mind just wasn't, we weren't able to, maybe just we didn't have for some reason, yeah, it wasn't evaluated
It wasn't discussed, that item,
thoroughly.
and that was in the press, quoting someone from the Historical Commission. And so that's what got my attention. Other things in the first hearing got my attention, but it had happened. It was over. But when they called for a second hearing, I became very concerned that issues not discussed or voted on by the Amherst Historical Commission would be raised. And I don't have a problem with anyone doing that, so long as they don't represent the Historical Commission on subjects we didn't have a point of view on, or we voted to approve the design.
Let me
You know,
ask you this, Pat. Do you feel that I misrepresented anyone in my efforts to be part of a consulting party in the 106 section 106 process so far?
Hetty, you were quoted in the paper as being a member of the Amherst Historical Commission, and you spoke out again against the scale. We approved the scale. And
I
so,
think, sorry, I
well,
don't mean
so
to
you
interrupt.
asked me, but I think I don't want to hash this over. It's done. But I think moving forward, we need to be very clear that as a consulting party for the Amherst Historical Commission, it needs to be related to the point of view and the votes by the commission. Have a personal opinion. You're free to do that, but it has to be clearly separated from your role on the commission.
Well, all I'll say about this is that I do think you're right that training of commission members needs to take something like this on board. I've been involved with discussing the Jones Library for several years now. I've always had a problem with the scale of the building, and I've said so in Amherst Historical Commission meetings. I've questioned the architects about that, and you have heard me either say that, or it's been minuted that I've had those concerns, or it's been recorded that I've had those concerns, and that's been from day one of my being on the commission.
Right, and Hetty,
Yes.
we did not discuss that. We approved the design
I think
twice.
I may have abstained.
I think when
And-
Hetty and I volunteered to be consulting party members, we did, there was little kind of discussion or guidance in what that meant. And we did open it up to potential discussion with the group, but there was no sort of parameters that were clear.
And that's the point I'm
So
making,
we
Carolyn,
never got
is
the
that
letter. We never got any of the information from the MHC about any of the adverse effects. So I think if I had had that information from the MHC, we would have been in a much better position to deliberate over some of the concerns that have been
right.
voiced about.
It would have been voiced in the Amherst Historical Commission meeting. And so I'm not wanting to be contrary here. I'm just thinking that I know this from being on other boards and commissions and the call to hearings. I know that my role is solely to represent the group I'm a consulting party for. But Hetty, you and I were commissioned at in the same time frame, but I never got that kind of orientation. And you didn't either. And so what I'm saying now is not to point fingers, not to take exception. It's done, but it raised the issue for me not to be pointing fingers at anybody who's part of that, to say as part of the orientation of new members has to be not only the document we get about conflict of interest, but it has to be something written up clearly, like my statement. And so if you volunteer, anybody volunteers to represent the Amherst Historical Commission at a public hearing, that would be very clear. And any questions that you thought the commission should take up, anyone, bring them to a meeting and have it be part of the discussion, have it be a clear point of view. And I just realized that this wasn't ever part of my orientation. It's just part of my life experience. And so I thought I'd bring it up as something going forward. Any new member to the Amherst Historical Commission, or any board for that matter in town, that this ought to be part of the orientation. So,
agree.
yeah,
agree with
yeah.
you.
So thank you, Hetty. And
Yeah.
I'm not meaning to make, be pointing figures. It's just an issue.
No, the
And
review process has been very, very confusing.
yeah,
It's mismanaged at many levels as well, I would
right.
say.
And you and I, it was at a time when they handed out loose leaf history of the Amherst Historical Commission, but nowhere in that was, conflict of interest is what the town was most concerned about, and we have to renew that every few years. But nobody raised this, and I think, it really
Well,
should
it's
be
also,
something.
it's such a rare,
Yeah,
just sort
and
of,
so, but it still should be part of the
Pat,
orientation.
I would
Yes.
ask you one thing. You did speak at the 106
No,
meeting,
no,
didn't you?
no,
Second one?
no.
You've contributed to the 106 comments
No,
online. No?
I made a comment this week in favor of the library expansion,
Right.
and I did it.
And
I
in
did
what
it
capacity did you?
as a private citizen. I said, this is my opinion as a private citizen, and I made it as a comment. I said, even though I sit on 3 boards in town, this is not speaking for them, it's speaking for me. And anyone has the right to do that. And so I just think that this issue should be addressed for the whole committee, and we're doing that now. But it should be addressed for anyone newly commissioned on the Amherst Historical Commission. And I really believe for any of the boards or commissions in town, because without that guidance, it's very easy to extend beyond that without realizing that you need to disassociate yourself and speak as a private citizen.
right. Well, I guess then when all of us appointed, myself and Hetty, maybe it could have been made clearer by those who are more understanding of the process of
Yeah, and
who should be appointed and what their role is as we discuss that.
it's only after the fact, Madeline, that, because I know that from my experience.
And you
And-
appointed Hetty and me,
Well,
right?
I don't know that we voted on you. You volunteered and we
Okay.
accepted that. We didn't vote to appoint you. But I guess I just assumed that anyone on the commission would have this understanding. And, and so now we're discussing it. And so it's not to cast disparaging comments on you or Hetty. You volunteered, you did what you did as civic responsibility. It's just that there needs to be some guidance as to what you can speak to as a member of the commission and what you can speak to as a personal comment.
Okay.
So I brought it up, and I appreciate everybody's considering it. And Nate, I don't know, you kind of inherited the historical commission when your another colleague left, actually several colleagues, I think. And so if you're continuing on, or Walker, maybe you could make a note of the need to do this for new members. And so we don't have a situation where there's confusion. So thank you all for considering this. I appreciate it. I just think it's very important for the integrity of the Amherst Historical Commission, because not everybody knows exactly what we do, and to not have clarity about representing it, it muddles that clarity.
Okay, let's see, I think we'll move on to the next agenda item unless anyone has anything to say. Okay,
Okay,
Robin, you can take this on.
great, thanks. We're up to unanticipated items. I had slotted section 106 under there, so now that it's been taken care of. I think the only other unanticipated item is the JCI windows. We were just having a discussion about that, Madeline, if you maybe wanted to just give your comments and ask for feedback on how you think we should move forward with that.
I don't think actually I have much information. It was just sort of based on what we had discussed earlier, and I don't think I want to create some additional condition without doing my research first, because I was just thinking if the preservation restriction would be a venue for that, but I don't think it is.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm trying to think, the only condition that the CPA applied in this round was to the fence for the North Cemetery, which was if it was a condition or a request for the town to engage the historical commission in a design discussion, not design review, but just discuss with us design possibilities for the fence there. I don't know that, I mean, Walker and Nate can talk to whether we've actually put anything into preservation restriction. It looks like it takes a long time for restriction to get rolling, as we can see, because the one that we're seeing before us is for a previous project, which I think was completed before I even joined here. And that and my feeling is it's a totally valid concern. We did discuss it somewhat at the CPA meeting, but didn't place it as a particular restriction on the award. But I think it's, I think the JCA seems like a great partner with us, and it would be, I would be comfortable inviting them to just join us to talk about that outside of a, a condition, just a request on their thoughts around providing, I just keep.
I don't know, is this what do other stained glass window restorations? How have they been handled in the past? I don't want to, this isn't my,
I think we'd invite them to a meeting to talk about it. They'd have to as part of the preservation restriction anyways. And so I think, I thought in their proposal, they said the storm windows actually probably the way they trap moisture kind of hasten the degradation of the
Yeah, I think Madeline's talking about the protection of, they had, I was there and I can say that the storm windows will be replaced, but also the protection, one of their arguments for the need to revitalize them was their imminent danger from basically anybody sitting in a pew. And I said, well, once they're repaired, what protects them from the imminent danger of anyone sitting in a pew? And there was sort of a, I don't know, there was the suggestion that, the restoration would give them more strength and durability, but I think it's a perfectly reasonable question to ask them, not to, not to make it complicated for them, but Madeline, I think you're right. I think it would be great to have them come before us and just say, have you thought about, I don't know what you're thinking about, but I was just thinking of like, a plexiglass border on the lower part of the windows inside the building. Because
Yeah, and maybe it's in their interest already to like protect these because of all the investments they've already been making in them. It's not as some sort of, I mean, maybe they already have that incentive because of all of the resources that have gone into their restoration already.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a good idea. I'm comfortable with inviting them to talk to us about it. We don't have to. I don't know what other people think. Does anyone else have any other comments? Nate,
I say invite them.
Okay,
Invite
Beth
them.
does invite them. Nate, do you have any thoughts?
No, I agree. I think just having a conversation is, that's a good start. And, if the restriction requires the maintenance and certain things of a property. And so, I don't know if you'd fold it into any of the conditions of the restriction, but, if there is still concern about them being damaged from, inside the building, then, is there a way to ameliorate that with some, I don't, right, in their proposal, they said once they're fixed, they're much stronger. So there's not as much of a concern that if you touch it, the glass will fall out or break. So,
Right.
I mean, I do agree with that. I think like the UU did put up some plexiglass or some, something to prevent people from touching it on the interior, but I think they had that anyways, but they added it. So I think there's, a conversation to be had.
Okay. I think it's a good idea, Maddie. It's just Madeline. I'm sorry, I'm calling you Maddie like you're my daughter. Madeline. I think it's a great suggestion. I don't think it's onerous, and we can just invite them.
Okay.
Yeah, Nate or Walker can extend an invitation to join us at their next availability to talk about it. Okay. Any other unanticipated items anyone wants to speak to? Okay.
Hilda has her hand raised.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay. Hilda, you want to give another comment?
I'm the one that's been working on the windows because I found the world-class glass window historian. Oh my God. More than, I'm not going to tell you, 60 years ago in Paris. Anyway, she's written 18 books on glass windows over the last 20 years. And I brought her to come and look at them. And in terms of the protection from the outside, the issue was the plexiglass that's there doesn't have any ventilation so that the air can't circulate.
But my
Therefore,
understanding is that we're well, I don't want to confuse two issues. There's plexiglass protection on the exterior of the window. There's
Yeah.
also a question of risk to the window from the interior, which the JCA talked about.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I just wanted to say that I am here and I know about the windows and I've been working on it, and I found the window specialist who's, because I've known her and I met her in Paris. So, when you hear somebody speaking American on the streets of Paris, you stop. I happened to be there on my postdoc while Louis was having a sabbatical, worked out at the same time. And so, I mean, I do know a little bit about the windows. If you want to ask me, I can answer the question. But
Okay.
they do need to put different kind of protection on the outside, because without the air circulation.
Yes, my understanding is that was.
Oh, you understood that. Okay, I didn't know
Yeah.
what you knew and what you didn't understand, but I'm sitting here trying to write it up. And
Okay.
they're not here, but I know more than they know. So
Okay.
at
I
this
think
point-
that just relates to the interior, the interior space and protecting the windows from
yeah,
there.
well, I guess
delighted
kids
to-
are more rambunctious now than they were in 1893.
That's right. Okay, thank you, Hilda. All right, So no further unanticipated items. Next thing is to schedule our next meeting. And we have been meeting on the first Monday of the month, which would be March 3rd. Does anybody have any objection to that date? Okay. So if we're all available for March 3rd, we'll meet March 3rd at. Any further questions or comments from the commission? Okay, thanks for your service, everybody. Pretty straightforward meeting, 8:11, that's not too bad. I will call this meeting adjourned and I'll see you all in a month. That's it.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you all.